So today I'm going to talk about why I converted to Islam. Because this is like a big change from who I used to be in the past. For the people that know me in the past and whatnot, they know me as a completely different person. Like, I was not like this. It's kind of drastic and it's kind of difficult when people ask me, like, why do you convert? Because I can't really say it within one sentence. Oh, this is why. Because there's just so many factors that it's hard to really put it in one sentence. Okay, yes, I believe in God now, and yes, my life has been better now. It's so much more than that. Mom and Dad, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry. They're very disappointed in me, and I know that, but it's not something they can control, and I have realized it's my life, and everything that I do, it's up to me where I want to go in life. So yeah, my background, I'm Chinese. I was born in China, and then I moved to Montreal when I was 3 years old. So I live in Quebec and Ottawa my whole life. And also now I live in Toronto. But regardless, I'm born in China, but I never really went back. I have no connection with it. I can speak Mandarin, but I can't write it that well. So yes, I'm Han Chinese, which means I'm mainland China. I'm not an Uyghur. I'm not a Hui Chinese. I'm Han Chinese, which is just like a majority of Chinese people. And most people there, they're very like anti-religion because of the environment that they're born in, obviously. Due to their political issues, religion in China is not really prominent and is very, very heavily discouraged. So I won't even get into the complications of how messed up it is there. I never really, believed in God. Okay, well, there was always a part of me that kind of like wished on something. So I remember when I was like younger, I had this little rock thing, this little bar of soap that I would kind of like talk to it as if I'm communicating to like the universe and whatever. And I would make wishes with it. For example, like I put stickers on it, like a heart sticker for like love, a star sticker for like fame, a bunch of stickers on it. So I would hold the sticker and then make my wish or something like that. When I was a kid, just like wishing on random stuff. There's moments where I try to connect with the greater universe because I feel like I've always been a really spiritual person. However, my family was not. My mom disliked religion because she was born in a small village in China and they were really into like shamanism and that type of like cults and whatnot. So she regarded all religions as something kind of like weird, kind of strange, kind of like dealing with the occult, kind of dangerous and kind of sketchy. Like, if you know Chinese people, they're generally pretty superstitious. Beware of Ouija boards, or like be careful of like there's certain colors and certain numbers in like Chinese culture that are like, quote unquote suspicious and weird. She's just never believed in God. I think she believes in spirits, but not God. That's enough about my mom. And as for my dad, he is Buddhist, sort of, but not exactly. I mean, he believes in these principles and he occasionally meditates maybe like once a week. He has like one of those meditation beads. Other than that, he doesn't really practice it that much. And so yeah, I've lived in a very like kind of like agnostic, like no religion type of family situation. Living as a kid, moving around a lot and living in Quebec and Montreal and Gatineau, it was not so fun. I was kind of like an outcast all my life in schools. I think it's due to racism now that I realize it now, because like there were just white kids everywhere and I was the only Chinese kid. So me being the outcast, this meant that I didn't want to fit in, but I also really did want to fit in. So I would kind of like coin myself as the weird kid. So I would always like do weird things, playing pranks on the teacher, or always like rebelling against the rules. Even when I moved to Ottawa through my high school years, felt pretty alone. This is like why I was pretty open to doing a lot of like, wrong stuff. So it was really easy for me at a young age to get manipulated by the wrong crowd. I got into a lot of situations that were really like bad for me if I continued them long term, but I did not continue them long term. I've done more messed up things than most people that I know around me. And I don't even want to get into it because it shocks people, honestly. I felt a little hollow inside sometimes. I've always was curious and want to try everything, and that's not really good if it's like things that are bad for you. When I moved to Toronto, I thought I would continue living my haram lifestyle, but I guess something changed. I met one of my friends and I became very close to this person. And I told this person, I'm looking for ways to, be more spiritual. Like I want to learn more about religions. Like I've delved into like Taoism a little bit. In the past, I read something about Taoism, about how like everything in the world springs from like the Tao, like the yin yang. Everything is like a giver, a receiver, kind of like the ins and outs of life, the day and night. Everything springs from it. The problem with Taoism is, for me, there's not enough like root. It's too much of a philosophy rather than a religion, if that makes sense. And I don't know, I wasn't really looking for a religion. So I told my friend I wanted to try, meditation or something relaxing. And he's Muslim, so he's like, okay, why don't you try praying? And I'm like, okay. So I tried to. So I open up YouTube, and then I watch one of those like prayer videos, of like kind of like this instruction almost. And it's just like this person, like praying, going down everything. And I open the video and I'm like, oh my god, did they just say, isn't that like a swear word? I was so ignorant. I was like so completely oblivious. But my parents used to tell me these stories. Like they would just be like, oh, I read on the news the other day that like this Muslim dad like drowned his daughter for not wearing hijab, blah, blah, blah. So like, growing up, I did have Muslim friends as a kid, but like hearing all these stories, I'm like, okay. And they're like, don't ever become Muslim, don't ever marry Muslim. I'm like, of course I won't. Like, why would I? Like, no reason for me to become it. I joke about it now, but it was very, very, very difficult for me. It was not something easy. It was definitely not something that I could talk about with anybody. Like, even talking in front of like a camera right now makes me kind of anxious because I don't know what the world is going to say to this. But then I tried praying. And then while I was doing it, there was this type of like obstruction feeling of one side of me that's like, what are you doing? Another part of me was like, this is right. And so that kind of feeling was kind of like fighting each other at first. And by the time I finished praying, I felt like so much lighter, if that makes sense. I just feel so much like how I probably should be feeling. Like my head is cleared. Feels good, but I'm going to do a little bit of research on it. And I wasn't really looking at the right places. I searched up online. First thing I want to search up is Islam homophobic? And well, the thing is, if you search things up online, you're gonna end up in those type of boomer forums where a lot of old people who think they know a bunch of stuff just start talking about, yes, this, and no, it's that, and they just start arguing in the posts. I have certain standards that I believe are true to me. I believe that, same-sex marriage should be allowed, and I don't want to believe in something that condemns that, and is not up to a human being to judge who is right and who's wrong. Everyone is born into a different set of family life, different ideals, different values, so nobody will interpret anything the same. Nobody will see two colors the same. Nobody has the same opinion, so therefore, why would anyone have like a right answer to this kind of question? It is up to me to find out for myself. It is up to me to communicate with God, for me to communicate with Allah to see what is right. I converted a few months ago, last March, during quarantine, Corona time. I get it. It was not without many difficulties. So I prayed. I started pressuring myself because I kept thinking to myself, I'm not Arab. I know that's a really dumb thought. Obviously, there's a lot of Muslims in the world that are not Arab. But I also thought like, I don't have like the cultural aspects that some people have. I don't have the connections. I never celebrated Eid. I never celebrated these kind of things. And when I told my friends I wanted to become Muslim, some of them kind of like joked around with me. They said, you're not Muslim, like stop joking. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. And they're like, yeah, right. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, and they kind of didn't believe me. And eventually I kind of got to a point where I thought, okay, enough playing around. You're basically pretending. This voice in my head was telling me, you're basically pretending. You're just pretending this. This is just a phase. Converting was the hardest decision of my life because I know my family would hate it. And I was right, they hated it. They were so terrified. They thought I got brainwashed, they call me this, they call me that, they call me every dirty name. It's hard for them to accept because they're from a different generation. One side of my head said, if you become Muslim, there's no way you're going back. You're in it for life. There's another part of me realized I've kind of been a believer my entire life. I've kind of always noticed love and been driven by emotions and been driven by friendship, courage. In a way, converting to Islam does not feel like I'm changing from who I am into someone else. It is more so changing from someone I'm not to someone that I am. There's this quote that says, in life, we have to unlearn what we've been taught to remember what we've always known. But there was moments of skepticism. While looking out my apartment window that I lived in at the time, I was asking for God for a sign. I was looking out and I just thought, come on, okay, listen, just make some car drive by and that's gonna be my sign. That's gonna be my sign. Or make something happen outside. And this is during quarantine, so like nobody's outside at night. And so I look out the window among the cities and the skyscrapers. So I waited. I can be patient. There was no sign. There was no sign because the sign has been with me all this time. Does that make sense? This feeling, this overwhelming feeling washed over me as I sat there on my bed looking out of my apartment window. I don't need a sign. My life has been a sign. I just haven't been counting them as signs. All these things were going through in my life, all these good things, all these blessings, and I have not even counted any of them as signs. I just thought everything was the way it was for just whatever reason that it was. Things happened just because. I never really regarded them as signs. And I think about all these things that I wished for. And at that moment in life, I had everything that I wished for. I used to pray, I used to really wish, I used to hope with all my heart that I would get into film school in Ryerson in Toronto. And I got in. And on every one of my birthdays, when I blow out the candles, I make a wish and I wish I have a good life. I wish I learn. I wish I gain wisdom. I probably should have wished for something more tangible, because if you wish for wisdom, Allah will put you through all the harsh things so you learn about the wisdom. And I did learn. I learned from all the things I've done, all the messed up things I've done. And it's all these signs that I've been neglecting. Everything has been a sign. Look for signs. The reason you don't see signs is because you're not counting them as signs. If you're driving a car and you see a traffic light, and then you never even learned about traffic. You never even sat in a car. You never know anything about traffic lights and cars. When you see the red and you're trying to drive and stuff, you have no idea what that means. You just think it's whatever. It's probably just decoration. Not a sign unless you count it as one. I still have bad habits that I'm trying to curb. I'm not a perfect person, and I realize nobody really is. I used to thought to be a good Muslim, you have to be free of sin. You have to be some sort of pure person. I'm obviously not. Converting to Islam was the most challenging thing that has ever happened to me. I felt like my life was on the line. Like I just feel like, who am I? And I thought I needed to, and I felt like I couldn't. At the end of the day, we rely too much on external signs, and we forget every internal sign, every feeling of joy, every feeling of sadness. These are all signs